scratching my head going, okay, this is kind of weird. And at the same time, again, I was, there, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to do something for the Lord. And so I came up with the idea to produce my very first video, which was really, really not a very good production. But I saw Peter Ruckman's manuscript evidence. I think it was called Advanced Manuscript Evidence or something like that. He did a 2-part study on VHS when I had originally seen it. It's probably on DVD by now, I'm sure. But I love this thing that he would actually hold up a Bible and he would say, look at that right there, like this, and he'd show it, he'd show the verse, and they'd zoom in on the text. And he was showing, these are the actual books, here's the quotes, boom. And I thought, I like that idea. So I took a tripod that's sitting here with my recorder, my audio recorder on it, and I had a camera, a little cheap JVC camera. No, I don't think it's in here right now. I have it over in that hallway out there on a shelf. But I took this camera and I would have the camera on my tripod kind of up like this, and I put my white suit or my white dress shirt on, and I'd put the documentation in underneath it and things. And I kept hearing this thing about the NIV removed 60-some thousand verses or words from the King James Bible, and they changed this and they changed that. And I was always going, okay, I'd like to see that documentation. And I looked through all my different books and nobody provided it. So I don't know if I have it here or not. Yeah, here it is. So what I did is I determined in my mind I'm going to look up the NIV that I had growing up for many, many years, the Today's New International Version that was big at the time, and the King James Bible. I'm going to take my Strong's Concordance and I'm going to look up the word, like the word sanctify. Okay? Sanctify in the King James Bible, and how the NIV would change it to consecrate, or makes them holy, dedicates, honor, keeping it holy. Just something like that. Or you have soul, And what I did is I went through over 20,000 references in the King James Bible, NIV, TNIV, according to the Strong's Concordance, all the references to soul. I'd go down through every single one, look up in all three, and then I'd write down what each of the three said. And took me a couple months to get that project done. And I would do this while either listening to music or listening to preaching on the computer. And then I'd be sitting there with all these different Bibles and Strong's Concordance, and I'd be doing this thing. And here's just an example of it right there, of the collation work that I did. You can see there the three different columns. And all in all, I documented 5,000 word perversions in the NIV, TNIV. In other words, there's many times that it'll read like the King James, but over 5,000 times that the NIV and the TNIV totally changed the text. And here I have in the back, brother versus brother and sister. The TNIV is a gender inclusive translation. They would add and sister. And I show here the Nestle's 27th, the Textus Receptus, the KJV, NIV, TNIV, where the TNIV is adding and sister. Again, I documented that. So I have done my own research. Nobody can say, you're just copying things from other people. No, actually, I did my own research. And I came out with that originally in this video, from NIV to KJV. And that one there, I came out with while at Liberty Baptist Church. And yeah, and you can see the difference here. This is the original one, my very first video project, and I had no idea about how to use Sony Vegas video editing software or really anything else. I mean, I put this thing together. It was terrible, the quality. I played my own intro music, which I can't play the piano or anything. I had a keyboard hooked up to the computer, and I played How Firm a Foundation at the beginning. Just dum 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 like that. It was bad, and all you ever see the whole way through is my hands my hands holding books up and things and showing things and whatever else. Really bad. But actually sent this thing around to different ministries. Sent it to Sam Gipp, sent it to Ken Hovind, Chick Publications, Gail Riplinger. Gail Riplinger actually sold this video for a little while. And then I finally thought, this is not good. And you can see here on the back, it just shows, you know, some of the things that I covered in the teaching of it. And it just, you know, down there in the corner by Bryan Denlinger. All right. So I started learning a little bit more about video editing and things like that. I got my first, you know, prosumer, you know, professional consumer camera, better than the one I had, and I redid it with me actually sitting there, and I got my suit and tie on and the whole thing, and I turned it into a 2 DVD set, which is this one, from NIV to KJV, and this time I actually Lord gave me the idea for the name King James Video Ministries. So King James Video Ministries was formed. I got a P.O. box in Hopeland, Pennsylvania, not down too far from Kleinfeldersville. And I got my website, kingjamesvideoministries.com, which I still have today. And so that kind of got the ball rolling there. And I went from that one to, I don't know if I have a copy of it, Ridiculous Bible Perversions of the New Age. And I think right around that time is when I got on YouTube. It was 2007 when I got started in this whole thing. 2008 I you know, got into YouTube, and yeah, right around that time period. I guess I still had, trying to think, I think I had, I'm trying to think of the timing of the whole thing. When I had created the logging, you know, videos and put them on and things like that. I think I just did that originally to show some people that I had done some logging or whatever. There's a lot of things that happen. Sorry if I'm getting some of my, you know, things kind of jumbled up and whatever here. But I did that while going to Liberty Baptist Church. That one there, and I now had my P.O. box, and I had the website and the whole deal. So then I did Ridiculous Bible Perversions of the New Age, put that on YouTube, and then I started working on my biggest video project up to that point, which was the Real Bible Version Issue Exposed. And that one I put out in a number of parts on this channel, and since then have put the full thing on my secondary channel in full high definition. So that one took, I think it was about 5 months, if I remember correctly. Again, forgive me if I'm getting some of these numbers mixed up. If you watch an older video and I say it took me 3 months or something, I'm not trying to give false information here. It's just a lot has happened in the last couple of years. I don't remember the exact dates and things like that, so forgive me if I messed up. But that was a big project for me. I started getting into the thing of graphics and professional music and the whole deal, royalty-free music. Which I had included some of that in from NIV to KJV. So that was, you know, a while ago. I was making these videos and things, getting this stuff out. And what happened is we were having these conversations, myself, Derek, Jesse, and we decided we were going to go into the house church and start a house church because, again, we were having problems with the Liberty Baptist Church. They were 501c3. There were some issues there. There were many times we wanted to go out witnessing door-to-door type of stuff, and we couldn't because we had to work on the church building, and it was just the politics of the whole church building structure. So we started our house church, and then it was just full out, all out, going out. There was, because again, we weren't allowed to go and pass out tracts at Walmart, and street preaching was kind of, it's okay, but don't get yourself in trouble because it'll reflect bad on the church. And well, when we had Bible Believers Fellowship, we just did, you know, pretty much what the Lord told us to do. No worries about that. And we started to, you know, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? We'd meet together. We'd study the Bible. Let's go out. Let's do some tracting. We started buying copies of books. We would hand out Sam Gipp's answer book up here. David Daniels' Did the Catholic Church give us the Bible? We would have that. Actually, right there it is still. Before we were even Bible Believers Fellowship, we would just use King James Video Ministries as our house church contact info. And then we came up with Bible Believers Fellowship, kind of separated the two, and got a separate website. It was kjvbbf.com, and that has since been taken down because I let Jesse and his wife have it after I got married and we moved away. So we were going out. We were doing a lot of door-to-door type of stuff. Again, early video, you can see us out going door-to-door. The three of us, myself, Jesse, Derek, and we would go out, and we were getting into this thing of, okay, we're a lot of times wasting time arguing with people and things like this. So we thought, instead of us just going out and knocking on the door and getting into a conversation and, whatever else, we can do that sometimes. If the people are out, we'll do that. But let's just go and we'll just get information out. So we got these door hanging bags, and we were giving out Ruckman's, Millions Disappear booklet. I don't know if, I'm sure I have one someplace, but not important. The whole point is we were getting out, I had this big box, and I'd take this big box with me, and I'd be like the pack mule, and I'm walking down the center of the development or whatever, along the street or whatever, and Jesse's doing this side of the street, and Derek's doing that side of the street, and go and hang him on doors and whatever. And if somebody'd be out, he'd start talking, and the two of us would walk over, and I'd be carrying the big box, and I'd hand it to, here's some more, here you go. And we were just doing hundreds and hundreds of, it was up into the thousands, of things that we did, getting out this information. And I'd spend my week, and we were also giving out Ken Hovind's 100 Reasons, I think it was, Why Evolution is Stupid. We were giving out those DVDs, making all these copies of the DVDs. So we had a DVD duplicator, a little 1-to-1. You put in the master and then the copy, and we do that. So I'd spend my week just studying still, listening to sermons and studying while the DVDs are burning, and using my computer as well. So it was a really slow process. We ended up buying a big 1-to-11, I think it is, DVD duplicating tower. It can do like 11 DVDs at the same time, sitting right over there. And so, we're doing that, and then I, of course, would use it when I'd have an order come in from Gail Ripplinger for my DVDs, like this. Of course, I was selling them on my website at that time too. So I was, making a little bit of money from that, and it was a lot of work, very time intensive. I did the whole thing myself. I printed the paper, the cover here. I burned the DVDs. I printed the artwork on the DVD. I had printers that could do that. I shrink wrapped them, did the heat gun thing, all the deal. Never had anybody else produce my DVDs. So, trying to think. So we did that for a long time, and we had some very interesting contacts and things, ministry contacts. And one of those interesting ministry contacts was my wife. And when she contacted me, she was in kind of that phase right before salvation where she was really starting to have a strong desire for the truth. And she was big time into the InfoWars thing, which I was at that time as well. Not that I believed everything Alex Jones was saying, but I could, I was like into the prophecy thing and the end times, New World Order stuff. And so she contacted me, and she asked me a few questions, and I wrote back to her, and I'm like, I had no idea, I just see this name, and I'm thinking, okay, is she an old woman? Is she young? Is she married? Is she divorced or a Satanist or whatever? And I remember her email at the time was Brainiac Spook. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit freaked out here by the spook thing. Is this some kind of government intelligence, person that's trying to, like, whatever here, they're going to assassinate me or something, And she was in that field, by the way, too, by, military intelligence. She was trained in military intelligence, has, different certificates from the FBI even. And in the military intelligence thing as a lost woman. And at the time she was I think when she first started writing to me, she was in the process of leaving a school she was going to. She was living in Boston at the time, and she was leaving there, or had left and going back to Iowa, and then she was staying with her parents, and so she started to find out about the Bible issue and whatever else, found my ministry, and contacted me saying, she wanted to join a Bible believing ministry. And I just was kind of like, okay, are you saved? And I wrote to her and I said, if you died tonight, would you be in heaven or hell? Do you know? And she wrote back and she said, I'd be in hell. And I remember thinking at the time, because I've dealt with people for so long, you get they don't come right out and say it. I've met very few people on the street that ever came out and said, yeah, I'm going to hell. Most of them, it was, I think I'll go to heaven, when I die. And I'd go to hell. I know I would. And so told her how to get saved, and I didn't call her on the phone or lead her into some prayer or whatever else. This is what you need to do to get saved. And I forget how long it was till I heard from her again, and she's, the Lord saved me, and I bought a bunch of books, and I'm studying this and I'm studying that and things, and how do you witness to people and things? I said, well, try some gospel tracts. I'll send you some. And so I sent her some of our gospel tracts that we would hand out and things, just a mix of some of Terry Watkins' little trifold pamphlets on different issues, and some chick tracts, and I don't think I had any Fellowship Tract League tracts at the time, but some of the stuff we hand out. And so she writes back, and hey, I went out to this Catholic church and I'm handing them out there, and I'm out doing this and I'm out doing that and things, and really, so we start writing back and forth, and finally I realized, this is a single, young woman, and she had a couple sermon requests and things, and I did those and whatever, and we decided, would you like to talk on Skype? And she was a little bit, I'm not really big on Skype thing. And I said, well, what else can we do? Whatever. And okay, fine. So we started talking on Skype, and it was like, we'll just talk just for a few minutes. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours the first night we talked. just talking like crazy, and just this amazing desire for truth, unlike anybody I'd ever seen before. And just, the Lord was doing things through her and for her, and that change that was there from what she was telling me she was in her past, what she shared a little bit of it in different videos. And I'm just going, because I had been told for years, people, you ought to get, find a girl and get married and all this other stuff. And I'd heard, Ruckman's thing on segregation versus integration, and I started realizing, I shouldn't have been going after those Spanish girls. And praise the Lord, I'd gotten victory over pornography a long time before meeting Catherine. And so, I'm thinking I'd like to meet, and I'd tell people I'd like to meet a German girl that's really into the truth like I am and stuff, and people will be like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Nobody's going to have your beliefs. Nobody's going to think the way you do, and whatever. And talking to her, emailing back and forth quite a bit, writing a lot of letters back and forth. Looking over this way, I think I had the letters over here somewhere on the shelf, but wouldn't matter because I'm not going to show them in detail anyhow. But we talked on Skype, and I'm just going, this is the woman I've been looking for. And I've been praying. I mean, I prayed fervently. I remember a passage in, I think it's Proverbs 18:21. Let me look it up real quick. Good advice for you if you're single, by the way. I do believe that a Christian that's single should use their single life to serve the Lord. But I think you should always be open to God's leading for you to find a wife if you're a man, or a husband if you're a woman. I don't think that being a single Christian is all that great. I mean, the Bible says it's not good for the man to be alone. God made a helpmeet for him. Now, if that was true in the Garden of Eden, I think it's very true for today. So, Proverbs 18, verse 22, and I'd pray this verse over and over again. I'd remind the Lord, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. Okay, Lord, you're using me in ministry. You're helping me to get these videos done and everything else, but I don't have a wife. Every time I try to meet one or whatever else, it just does not work out. Please, God, give me a wife. Please give me a wife. Your word says, and I'd remind him over and over again. So I got done talking to Catherine that night, and I said, remember I went over and I just, laying there awake, and it was like, 1 o'clock in the morning or something until we got done talking. And I said, Lord, I think she's the one. I think this is the woman that I could spend the rest of my life with. And my prayer up to that point had been, I realized either one of two things is going to happen if I meet a woman. Number one, I'm going to marry a woman and she's absolutely going to destroy my ministry. Because actually, I got to tell this story. There was I think a Mennonite or something like this, or some kind of a spin-off of the Mennonites, or some kind of Brethren Mennonite charity ministry, something like that, from down south. And they had 2 daughters. And this mother was like, my 2 daughters, would you be interested in one of them and stuff? Mennonites are very big on the thing of setting up their children with marriage. And I thought, hey, this would be great. Conservative, she's, wears modest apparel, the whole deal. And so I said, yeah, that'd be fun. And she said, well, I'll give my daughters your information and they can, check into who you are and whatever else and things. Both daughters rejected me. Both of them were like, he's too militant, And I tried Christian singles websites and the whole thing, stupid nonsense, And it was always just like, you're too militant, you're too militant. So people were telling me, I have to lower my standards, to find a wife. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. Not going to do it. And I thought, if I meet a woman, she's either going to lie to me, to become my wife, and then she's going to wreck the ministry, or, and this will be the rare one, I'll find a woman that can work with me in the ministry. Because, I was able to work with some of the brethren and things over the years, some brothers in Christ, but it was never like I really didn't click completely in my mind with them. And so I see Catherine, we're talking, and I'm thinking, this is the first woman I'm just having like total fellowship with her after just, writing back and forth for a couple months, and then our first actual conversation on Skype. And so I remember saying, okay, Lord, if she's the one, I don't ask for signs, because a wicked and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and I understand that, but just let me know some way, shape, or form. So we scheduled it, we'll talk tomorrow night, on Skype. So a time came to talk to her, and comes on, and she's sitting there, and for years and years and years, going way back to when I was little, you've seen the pictures, I loved flannel shirts. And I always liked the red and black buffalo plaid, the Paul Bunyan looking shirt and whatever else. And Catherine comes on, and she has got a red and black buffalo plaid dress on. And I'm just like, well, okay. I didn't tell her that. I didn't say anything about that. And again, tremendous fellowship and things. And so we're getting on to the end of the conversation. And I said, I have something I need to ask you. And she kind of smiled, She's already reading my mind before we even, officially got married. And I said, I could kind of lead up to this and whatever else, but I don't do that. I'm just going to be blunt and just honest with you. Would you want to be my wife? And she smiled and she said, yes. So we had met, I guess, in October of, I'm going to get in trouble if I don't remember this. I think it was 2011, and we were married in 2012, May of 2012. So went out to get her out in Iowa from her parents' place, and moved as much stuff as we could back. At the time I was still at my parents' place, so we moved her things in there, and just kind of like, okay, where are we going to go? Just kind of restructuring there, but just, it was a bad situation out there with her parents at the time. Praise the Lord, actually, all you out there that have been praying for her parents in that relationship there. Her parents are really, there's a lot better fellowship now. the fellowship's been restored between her parents and Catherine and myself. So it's pretty neat. And so I went out there at the time, needed to go out and get her and things, and so brought her back to my parents' place. I'm going, okay, now what do we do? Should we look for an apartment? I wanted to show her northern Pennsylvania. So we went on our honeymoon up to the Poconos area, which was not really the area I liked. I was more the Tioga, Potter County area, a little bit farther west, northwest of the Poconos area. And so we were there, and you know, just getting to know each other and things better, and you know, and actually had the chance to baptize my wife, so because she had gotten saved and nobody had ever baptized her, so I baptized her. And so while we were in this whole situation, we were contacted by some people from Tioga County, and they said, you know, would you like to come up? You know, we've been listening to some of your stuff, and they originally had bought some DVDs from Gail Ripplinger, and they wanted to know who this guy is and whatever else. So we went up to see them for a weekend, and they put us in contact with Country Chapel Baptist Church in Eldred, Pennsylvania, McKean County, which is farther out west towards Lake Erie. And so we went there, and they said there's this old house that is abandoned essentially right now, and nobody's been living there for a while, and if you two could come and help us out at our shop, at our store. They had bought an old school, and they were making the whole one end of the school into like an antique place, antique sales and country type store, huge big part of the store. And if you could help us out with, you know, me with my video work, and Catherine with her ability to build websites and things, help build a website, help do video and things like that, help out there, and then also help out with preaching and teaching the Bible at Country Chapel. In other words, I'd be like almost like an assistant pastor essentially. So we thought it was a good situation. We need a place to live, so this would be a great place where I can exchange my work and I can also continue the ministry. So okay, we'll do this. So we moved up to this place. Again, I'll be showing pictures there, and looks like a decent place, but it was really, really bad. There was no insulation at all in the walls. It was ridiculous in the wintertime. The area where we had our wood stove, we'd get that room up to 95 degrees, and literally you go out the hallway about maybe 5 feet this way and turn where we had our computers at. It would be 95 degrees in that room, and about 7 or 8 feet away in another room, it was 50 degrees. That's how badly insulated the place was. While we were in bed, you'd hear mice running on the floor, you know, the wood floor, you know, and stuff like this. And the one night we're there sleeping, I remember, and all of a sudden it was drop ceilings in the place, and this like, you know, just making all this noise, and I'm going, you know, I thought somebody was breaking in the house, so I'm jumping up out of bed, you know, what's going on? She's up, and we're going, what is this? What is this? You know, getting lights on, and there was a bat that had gotten up into the drop ceiling, and that thing's flying all over the place up there. So I had to pop up the one drop ceiling thing, take a towel and grab the bat, you know, and get him outside and things. And another time I walked down into the basement, and there was a big starling down there flying around, and just about hit me, you know. So I walked down, and there it was fairly dark, and the toilet was always backing up. Literally the toilet, the pipe, you know, the waste pipe went outside into a ditch outside. So you walk outside and raw sewage out there. I mean, the place was in really, really bad shape. And the water, again, I'll be showing pictures of all this stuff. The water in the place, it was in the whole, we called it gas land, actually, affectionately, because it was a lot of the area where they had drilled back in the 1960s, the Marcellus shale up there. They get the gas out of it and everything else. And they totally destroy the water system. The whole water table in the area is just totally toxic. And it was just filled with sulfur and rust and all kinds of wonderful stuff. I mean, the water just smelled horrible. You could not drink it. I mean, we were always cleaning the shower, turn the white shower walls, and just turn them, you know, yellow and orange. You'd you know, pour some water into container, and it would look clear, and within a couple minutes it would literally, you'd sit there, you could watch it, it would turn yellow. It was really bad. And my wife's hair was falling out. I mean, it was not good. So we thought this was this great situation. It turned out, no, actually it wasn't that great. And before we had moved in, I talked to the pastor, Bruce Ireland was his name, and I said, if we come up to this place, I don't want to be like, okay, we're here, and now all of a sudden we got to move right away, and what's the deal? And it was, the guy's name was Avery, last name Avery, that owned this place. And it was his parents' place, and then he was on, he'd gotten it through the will, and then, when his parents passed away. And then the Bruce Ireland and his wife had fixed this place up for him because they needed a place to stay. So they moved in. They were living right down the road. And so he said, oh no, there's no plans. This Avery guy, he doesn't, he just, if somebody's living there and taking care of the place, he's happy, so there's no plans there. And I said, what about your children? Oh no, there's nothing there. There's nothing, you'll be fine. You can stay there indefinitely. Just exchanging your work for rent, essentially. And I'd pay all the utility bills for the place. It's just, it was an abandoned house. They had, access to it just to take care of it, to watch over it and stuff like that. So, okay, fine. So we were there. Again, the whole faithful attendance and stuff like that. I knew better than the whole church building thing, but I was still kind of a little bit on the fence over, if you listen to my old Bible Believers Fellowship studies, I'll say there's still good church buildings out there and the whole thing. And I was saying that because I never had experience with an actual guy that professed to believe the King James Bible pastoring a church. Well, Bruce Ireland was the first one that I saw like that. He never corrected it with the Greek or the Hebrew or whatever else, So, but again, I started to see the politics and the whole thing of the church building thing again, and it was kind of and it was not the best for our marriage, and we're trying to get to know each other and stuff, trying to what do you want to do here, and do you want to go out shopping today, and why don't we, my wife's trying to, she never really cooked much because she was just a single career woman for many years before she got married, and so she's trying to make recipes, and right in the middle of that, phone rings, hey, could you come down to the shops to do video, or could you come down to help with this, or and so yeah, we're staying here, but we started feeling like we were indentured slaves, like we owe them everything and our time and whatever else. I mean, we're just haven't been married that long. So, the stress level started to build, but we were just hanging in there and whatever else. Christmas time came around of 2012, and we went down to see my parents in Lancaster County, and then came back up after the Christmas vacation thing, and I remember we were there and we were doing the whole, there at the church, being part of the ministry and everything else, and when we would go over to the Ireland's place on Sunday afternoons and things, and I remember we went in the one time and he said, hey, he said, brother, he said, I need to talk to you about something. Oh yeah, okay, and stuff, and it was just like this little bit of an uneasy, like, uh-oh, there's a bomb that's going to drop. And so I'm thinking, okay, and there wasn't any kind of bad, feelings or anything there. I was just, whatever, we were getting along, I thought. So we go downstairs, and he takes me down to the basement, and he says, hey, my daughter and her husband, they are selling their place out in Ohio, and they need a place to come to, and I kind of told them that they could have the place that you're staying at. And, I mean, it's not definite yet, not totally for sure, but, you're probably going to have to find another place to live. And I was supposed to preach that night, I'm just going to be preaching Sunday night service. And it was just like I got hit in the stomach, because I'm going, what? Because we were just, like I said, newly married. We were not real well off financially. I couldn't just, I'll just go buy something else. And it was just like the wind got knocked out of my sails. Just really, like, my spirit was broken. I just did not know what to do, and I'm thinking, what on earth am I going to do? And went and I just stumbled my way through the sermon. I did a horrible job, and just I didn't know what to say and whatever. And of course, told Catherine about it, and she's going, "What are we going to do?" And so we started talking. What are we going to do about this? And things started heading downhill again. And and it was funny because I remember occasionally we'd listen to a lot of Ruckman stuff while we'd be eating supper or making food, or whatever. And I remember the one night we had my own sermons on there from Bible Believers Fellowship because she hadn't heard a lot of them. So I'd say, you want to hear this one? And so I put on my study on No Local Church. And we were listening to it, and I was saying about the church buildings are unscriptural and whatever, and I remember it was just like we both kind of looked at each other and were thinking, I think that's what we're missing here. We shouldn't be in a church building. And so contacted my parents and I said, would it be okay? I mean, we have no place to go right now. We don't have very much money, and we have to move. We have to leave. We're being forced out of this place after being told. And I actually went and I confronted Bruce on that, and I said, hey, you told me that we weren't going to be kicked out of here. And he said, and he actually cried at that time, and he said, I lied to you. I'm sorry. I said, yeah, we always promised it to our children if they wanted it, and our children come before you. So I lied to you. I'm sorry about that. At least he was honest, I guess. But so I called my parents and I said, can we put our stuff there? And we'll live in my old wood shop. I'll come down and I'll sell a lot of my woodworking equipment and things. We need the money. And would that be okay? And my dad said, yeah, you can put your stuff there in the shed, and we'll put some other things out in the garage and whatever else. We'll put your stuff around, and you can live in your old wood shop. It was 16 foot by 16 foot. And we lived there over the summer of 2013. And again, you can see a lot of these videos. If you go back through my video history, you can see when I talked about, I'm standing out in front of the house where we were staying, this old house in northern Pennsylvania, and I'm talking about, please pray for us and things. And so we got things packed up into a big Penske truck as much as we could, and we started to leave some things there. But I had a 2009 KLR 650 Kawasaki motorcycle that I'll be talking more about that in my study on motorcycles and things like that. And that was like a secondary vehicle to the truck that we had. And that was the only other vehicle we had, my pickup truck and my motorcycle at the time. So I put that in the back of the Penske truck, figuring, okay, we'll drive down to Pennsylvania early morning, unload everything. And I think, we unloaded everything and we went back the same night. So it was a long trip. It was like a 5-hour trip down. And I think, can't remember if we unloaded everything that day or the next day, whatever. But we went down and we came back up pretty much, really quickly. So that's what we did. And I remember we're driving along, and we got to talk about the thing, the house church thing, and what are we going to do, the ministry plans for the future, and where we're going to live, and whatever else. And I remember I said to my wife, what would happen, because up until that point in time, the only videos I had done were my DVDs. These DVDs were the only thing I had done. And all the other preaching I'd done was all audio sermons, sermon audio and things. And I'd done a few little bits and stuff and showed, I videotaped some of the preaching I did at Country Chapel Baptist Church. And again, you can find those old videos. And I said, what would happen if I started preaching sermons, but putting them out on YouTube as videos? And she was, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. So moved back down to my parents' property, and we were staying in the 16 foot by 16 foot wood shop of mine. I cleaned all the stuff out. We, put in our stove and our refrigerator and, the bed and a table, and I put up a little laundry tub for a sink, and, running water was a blue jug that you tip over and turn the thing on, and we lived like that for, probably about 6 or 7 months, something like that, through the summer. And we actually drove out to Iowa to her parents' place to get some more of her things. And she had a cat that was out there that she'd had for years and years named Casey. And so we brought Casey back with us, and quite a few adventures with that, you know. But so, you know, we were living there and got all of our stuff out of Country Chapel Baptist Church. We got the KLR out of the back of the Penske truck, rode it back up to northern PA. I remember it was like, you know, probably right around freezing till we got back to the house where we were staying. And it was so cold. I remember we're just like, you know, if you ever rode like in really, really cold temperatures, you're just kind of like, you know, you want to move, but that just means more wind hitting you, and you're just kind of tucked in as close as you can get yourself to the motorcycle, and you're kind of have your helmet down underneath, you know, the visor as much as you can, trying to keep the wind off of you, and your hands are just like frozen. You know, it was a cold ride, but we got back. Got the rest of our stuff out of there, moved out, and I remember I took the keys back to the place and handed them to Bruce Ireland, and he was just like, okay. Didn't say, hey, you know, God be with you or anything else, just whatever, totally cold. After being there for nearly a year and serving with him in his church and things. And we had a big blow-up argument and stuff too, but, you know, whatever. I was like, you know, I'd have forgiven and whatever, hey, you know, I shook his hand or whatever, but he didn't want to shake hands, so whatever. So we're down there in Lancaster County, and that's where a lot of the videos are of me up on top of the hill. That's the property that my parents own, and you can see the power line behind me. You can see the big high tension power lines, and I did a lot of different studies there and things, and so I would be doing my preaching and teaching in video form, putting them out on YouTube. That's when that whole thing started. And I realized, you know, I'd rather just put my videos out there for free, put the DVDs online. They're free to people to watch, and then I'm just going to spend my time preaching and teaching the Word of God for free. And so I closed down my web store, and I had the donation thing there, and people would donate to the ministry. I appreciate that. And we started to try and build up our finances to be able to purchase some place, and we looked in Virginia, we looked in West Virginia, we looked in all throughout Pennsylvania, took a lot of drives, where do you want to live, and a lot of day trips and things. I sold a lot of my equipment from when I was a wood turner, which is kind of hard, you know, selling some of my wood lathes and things like that. Had a really nice Powermatic wood lathe, and I sold that. I had a big custom wood lathe. There's actually video of that earlier on in my different videos of me turning this big perpendicular wood turning thing. I sold that lathe after having it custom built. Again, hard decision, but we had to have money. And the real heartbreaker was I had to sell my motorcycle, which really meant a lot to me. That was a very special bike to me. Had a lot of happy memories on that bike. So again, I'll talk more about that in the other study, but we were just doing everything we could, selling anything we didn't need, really kind of trying to downsize and save up as much money as we could, live as cheaply as we could. That's why we were living in a wood shop, old wood shop, just a small little place to live in, and just really tried to, you know, save our money. And we had no idea at all where we were going to be moving. And one of our viewers from the state of Maine actually wrote and said, why don't you consider northern Maine, or the state of Maine, you know. And I'm going, Maine? What? You know, I mean, we're Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania. We're going to go the whole way to Maine? You know, like, are you crazy? It's just like, it snows all the time there, and it's freezing cold, and it just, this barren wasteland up there, there's, you know, nothing at all. And because you know, one of the big things my wife and I liked was going out and picking wild edibles, wild raspberries and things like that, and herbs and whatever else that we could find in the wild, and really getting into that. And I'm thinking, Maine ain't gonna have any of that stuff. I mean, it's just like this total frozen north up there. It probably doesn't even, you know, you probably don't even have green grass in northern Maine, you know. And so I thought, oh, okay, you know, I'll just start looking. So I start looking up properties, and I'm going, wow, this is actually a beautiful place up there. It's really kind of nice, and it's pretty good, affordable properties. And so I said something to my wife, and I said, what do you think? You want to go up to Maine? And she said, well, it's kind of interesting you say that, because a guy that she had been dating long time ago, I think she was either dating or just a friend, or I'm not sure, but she was dating. And she said the one time, she said, I'd like to go on a road trip to Maine. And he was like, Maine? I'm not going to Maine, And so she kind of forgot about it. And here, all these years later, she marries me, and like, let's go on a road trip to Maine. So she's like, yeah, let's go. That'd be great. So we loaded our cat in the back in a carrier and things, and loaded up our stuff in my old truck, and we drove to Maine. I think it was like 18-hour drive, and drove up here. Started out early in the morning, drove the whole way up, and decided to look at some properties. And we looked at, we were thinking, well, we don't have money for a house. So we thought, well, we'd like to have some land, some nice, remote type of land and whatever else, and we can build something on it. And, we were perfectly content to just, build something small. I mean, we were living in a 16-foot by 16-foot, wood shop at the time. And so really didn't need that much. And I had a wood stove, and I had a generator and a bunch of other things. I thought, we can do this. So that was in September that we did that. And so it's still pretty warm here in Maine, and we were like, hey, this is nice. And at night it was like, wow, it's kind of cool here, but really a lot of vegetation, and really this actually looks pretty good. So we found a property in Littleton, and we decided we would purchase the property. I offered less than what the guy was asking, and he said, yeah, okay, I'll sell it for that. And the whole debacle of that whole thing, I look back at that now and realize it was a big mistake, because there was a right-of-way getting back to our property. Don't ever buy a property that has a right-of-way going back to it. And so that's what we did. Bought this land, and we went back down to Pennsylvania, because we still had our stuff down there. And I said, okay, now what are we going to do? How are we going to get our stuff up there? And I said, well, we'll just go, we'll live on the property, and then we'll have to get an office in town to run the ministry. And, well, yeah, but there's issues with that and things back and forth, and I don't know, and how are we going to get something built in time before winter hits up there? And yeah, that's true, and things. And we had, the closing date was later, so it was October when the closing date was for our property. So we came back up in October for the closing date, and we were kind of, we just kind of hung out and went around, and we did some kayaking on the one lake, Drew's Lake, and we stayed at a little, like, Tall Timbers Lodge, I think it's called. Stayed there, and just kind of sightseeing in the area and things like that, getting to know the area a little bit, and went back down to Pennsylvania again. And we're down there, and it was like, okay, are we going to be able to stay down here and just go up in the spring and start building? Well, had some family issues there, and some arguments and things were, coming up, which, living there on my parents' property, that was kind of bound to happen. And so we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Should we try to rent someplace up there? Nah, it's just throwing money away, whatever. We still had some money left over. And because I'll just tell you, we spent $18,000 on our property, on our land that we had. And so I said, at that time I still had my KLR 650. And I said, well, why don't we sell the motorcycle, and we can scrape together some more money. Sold the motorcycle, and just tough thing for me. That bike meant a lot. We used it a lot for secondary transportation. So came back up in November. Yeah, November, because we were here for Thanksgiving. So we came back up. There was no snow that year, but it was really cold. I remember that. And we wanted to go back to our property and just kind of hang out there, because we had bought kayaks when we came up in October to do the closing for our property. And we took the kayaks back. There was a little, like, wall tent looking thing back there on the property. It was just old, logs, and then an old canvas tarp stretched over the top. Stuck our kayaks in there. So we wanted to go back and hang out at our property. but the bridge blew out, and the drunken neighbor wasn't about to fix it, too lazy and too drunk. And so we couldn't get back to our property, but we came up with the intent of looking at maybe an old house. Is there some old house that we could find? So we came up and we looked at this place here. And they were asking, like, I think it was right around $20,000 for it. We paid $16,000 for it, and I offered $12,000, and they said no, they have to go to 16 because they're going into foreclosure, and that's what the bank needs, and the blah blah blah. So okay, sure. So I mean, we spent just about every cent that we had at that point in time, and believe me, we had to sell a lot of stuff to get to that level. But so okay, we bought the place Thanksgiving, and they said they can't settle until January 15th, I think it was, of 2014. Okay, yeah, because it was 2013 when we first came up. 2014 is when they can settle. Okay, so talked to the realtor and stuff, and I said, we can move our stuff in then on that date. Yep, you can move your stuff in. We'll give you the keys and the whole deal. And they'll have all their stuff out of there. Everything's out pretty much already, because they just had left this place. It was ironic. It was kind of funny because I got to tell this story too. When we were down in Pennsylvania, the house, that old rickety place we were staying in Eldred, Pennsylvania, it was the Avery place, and we would pray a lot of times because there again, Bruce Ireland had told us that we could actually buy the place, and so we were praying about the money to buy the Avery place. Well, lo and behold, this very house that I'm standing in here was owned by a woman named Avery. So, Lord answers prayers. Just took him a little bit longer and had us come here. But so the situation was that it was a divorce situation here, and this guy was trying to fix this place up. So he had a lot of the plaster torn off, the old lath. You've probably seen it in some of the videos out here in the hallway. This room here, the drywall is still unfinished up here, and I thought, well, whatever, it doesn't matter, because we're just going to use it for the ministry. We're just going to stay there for the remainder of the winter of 2014 summer, spring, summer, fall. We'll get our place built back at our property. The lane will be fixed going back in, and we'll just use this for the ministry. We're 13 miles from here to the place and to our property in Littleton. That was the plan. So we moved in here in January, and I remember when we came here, when we first looked at the place, everything was still functioning and whatever else, but they never turned off. When they left here, they just walked away, and they had a lot of their stuff here yet, and I thought that they were going to be moving it out. That's why I said make sure it's all moved out. And the realtor was like, well, it is. They just walked away from the place, and they left some of their furniture and other things. And so it was kind of weird. But so I thought, oh, okay, whatever. Come up here. They never shut the water off in the pipes, and so all the pipes had burst. So we had no heat at all in January, northern Maine. Okay, the snow outside was about, that deep, and it was, it'd been a pretty bad winter up until that point in time. Kind of like this winter. It's been very cold and a lot of snow. And so I'm going like, what are we going to do? Thankfully, the neighbor snow blowed out our lane for us, because I didn't have anything, any way to clean it out. I didn't even have a snow shovel at that time. And so we moved our stuff in. Just kind of used it as storage at first. And I had to rewire the wiring downstairs to put our electric cook stove down there. But I mean, it was 18 degrees a lot of times Fahrenheit in the kitchen when I'd be cooking down there, or when Catherine would try to cook, and you try to do dishes with 18 degrees. I mean, our dish soap was frozen a lot of times. You try to heat that up, and the way we got water is there's a spring down in the basement of this place. You lift a plywood cover up, and I've shown video of it, and you lift a cover up, and there's a stone hole going down in. There's a spring water down there. So thankfully we did have a source of water, but it was really cold living in this place. But we kind of got back on our feet. In early videos, you'll see me. I'm all dressed up in sweater and winter hat and everything else, because we really didn't have much heat other than just electric heaters in the different rooms, and just a lot of different interesting things. And I remember we realized at some point in time then that Catherine was with child, and so that there's a whole story there too, that as well. We decided that we weren't going to go the hospital route. No ultrasound, no doctor's visits, checkups, anything else. And so summertime came around. We finally got running water, got our plumbing system fixed here. The plumber told me, he said, I wouldn't even try to fix this heat system here. I just tear all the copper pipes out, get rid of the old oil furnace. He said the thing's cracked anyhow. The water that was in it just cracked it. It's shot. He said, you're just going to have to get a whole new system. So I thought, well, I can put off the heat at least for the summer months, the spring and summer and into the fall. But I got the water system fixed here. So thankfully it's all just down in the one corner of the house there, the kitchen and the bathroom. And that's it for water. There's nothing upstairs here. So Catherine found out that she was with child. We decided we're going to have a natural childbirth, which we did. Lord helped us with that. Oliver was born right downstairs. And this whole time I'm doing videos. If you look at the videos and you see the creek behind me and really beautiful scenery, that was over at the right-of-way going back to our property in Littleton. And just dealing with the neighbor over there, and it was his responsibility to keep the right-of-way open, and he never did. It was just always like pulling teeth with the guy. He was always drunk. He was a Roman Catholic, had a filthy mouth, just a terrible neighbor. Again, finally had a chance to witness to him when he was sober. He rejected Jesus Christ, rejected the gospel plainly, right to my face, and I told him he was going to go to hell, and he did a couple months later. Died in his own vomit. So then we ended up selling the property, and again, most of you've been following the ministry, all these different trials that we've been through. And this past year when we sold, 2017, sold the property, bought a new property, and right now the plans are that we're building down there as we can. Right now, of course, we can't because it's a lot of snow and things, and I got to try to get a plow blade on the front of my truck. I got to hook that up and everything else, and try to get down there and plow that open and try to get back in and resume building. But we've had to take some time off from doing that. And right now the plans for the ministry is eventually we'll be living down that way, but this is going to remain the ministry headquarters for a while till we can afford another place down there closer to the property, because the property does not have electricity. And you say, why are you doing that? Doesn't make sense. Why would you buy property that doesn't have electric when you're in video ministry? Well, because I don't think I'm going to be in video ministry my whole life. I can see the handwriting on the wall, so to speak, about YouTube and the internet in general and things. So, and it's cheaper. Quite frankly, it's cheaper. We can't afford. Again, I'll just tell another little thing here that went on this past year in 2017. I'm very much against being in debt, but I thought, well, I prayed about it. I said, you know what, Lord, I'm just going to at least go see if I can get a mortgage. And the Lord turned that down. And I don't know why it happened. Well, I do know why now, because it wasn't his will, but it just didn't make any sense. I mean, even the people at the bank are going, I don't know why you were rejected for the mortgage thing. And they're going, this doesn't even make any sense. What you wanted to borrow was, well within your means to pay off and whatever else, and it got rejected. It was Lord. Plain and simple. So with the money that we had from the sale of our property, and again, another thing I would do occasionally is I'd buy a vehicle and fix it up and sell it, make a little bit of money. And so we had money that we were saving up and saving up and saving up, bought our new property, no right of way this time, praise the Lord. And so it's an hour and a half south of here, here in Bridgewater. And so that's the ministry. That's how I came to know the Lord and what the Lord's done since then. And it just shocks me sometimes to think of all the Lord has done with this ministry. And I've said this in other videos. I literally, when the Lord called me into the ministry and said, I want you to be that guy out there fighting this stuff, I remember I thought to myself, okay, well, I don't really think that this is the calling that God has for my life. This is just kind of like him testing me. Kind of like to see, kind of like Abraham, put your son Isaac on the altar and sacrifice him. And I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be like, okay, Lord, I'll sacrifice my life for you. And here comes the knife. Okay, let me go back to the wood turning art world now that I know all the stuff about the Bible. You don't want me in full-time ministry. You don't want me in video ministry. And the Lord showed me that, yeah, that's actually what he wants for me. So that's what I've been doing. Will I ever go back to the art world? I don't know. I have no idea. The Lord's given me a lot of different talents over the years, and I give him all the praise and glory for it. I can log. I'm a certified motorcycle repair technician. I'm a wood turner, a wood carver, a professional chef for a while. If you've seen the video about my working history, I built boats. I've had a very unique life. And Romans 8:28. For we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. That's one of my life verses. And so many things that were confusing about my past as a lost man. And I haven't gotten into a lot of the stories about my lost life because there's no point in it. That Bryan is dead. And a lot of my relatives, they think I'm going to go back to that. They don't understand that he's dead, that he's gone, that he was buried, and a new Bryan rose up with Christ. I have Jesus Christ living within me. I'm born again. I didn't pray some prayer and save myself. I didn't believe something and save myself. God saved me. And he purchased me. And he counted me faithful and put me into the ministry. There's one thing that you can't say about Bryan Denlinger, those of you, my enemies out there, and that is you can't say that I'm wishy-washy and that I'm not blunt and I don't just come out with what I believe. I'm going to tell you what I believe. I'm going to preach the book. I believe in preaching the whole counsel of God and not worrying about tiptoeing through the tithers. That's been, when the Lord called me into the ministry, I determined in my mind, I thought, okay, Lord, if you really want me in this, I'm just going to, no holds barred, nothing held back. I'm just going to come out with it. And if it gets me killed, fine. If it gets me in lots of trouble, fine, whatever. You're going to have to protect me. If you want me to do this, Lord, you protect me. And he's protected me and given me a dream life. It's very interesting because the new property that we got, it's just amazing how the Lord brings things full circle, because not very far from our new property is the town of Patton in Maine, and there's a lumbermen's museum there. I have a video up about that showing that lumbermen's museum, and it all goes back to that old time woodworking stuff that I was so impressed by, and I realized it helped me to realize the modern world is not it. Ask for the old paths. Amazing. The thing that started the salvation process in my life. And I dreamed of having a property in the mountains and the old logging and all that other stuff. And I go all these years later and I come back. Late 1990s basically is when I first started getting into a lot of this stuff. The old woodsman ways and whatever else. There, and here I am, 2017 and into 2018 now. And the Lord's given me what I basically gave up way back when. I don't think I'm ever going to be a woodsman or have property in the mountains or whatever else. Well, here I am. I would have never thought that I was going to be married to a woman of, my ethnicity and that the Lord would give us a child. I never thought I was going to have a child. I'm just going to be a single guy. I was, it used to be Paul was my hero, and I'd say I'm going to be like the Apostle Paul and whatever. And the Lord had different plans, and I'm sure glad he did. Serving the Lord is I don't understand Christians. Professing Christians, and I'll hear them and they get frustrated and they say, I was really tempted to leave the Lord. I don't understand that. I get tempted sometimes to leave the ministry, I'll tell you that. I get frustrated sometimes with people, but leaving the Lord, there's nowhere else to go. I don't get that. And so I'm going to be with the Lord from now till the rapture, till the catching away, excuse me, I'll say the right term, till the time when he says, come up hither. Then I want to be going, and then it'll be really good being with the Lord. Does he want me in ministry for the rest of the time? I have no idea. I guess when he stops giving me sermon ideas and you know, if the whole body of Christ just casts out my name as evil and eventually says we're done with Bryan Denlinger and there's better preachers out there to watch and whatever else, well, okay. I'll do something else. This ministry here is not, I have to stay in ministry and I'm just going to compromise to do whatever I can to stay online and whatever. I'm not going to compromise. I will not compromise. I will not take money from Google. I am not going to yoke up myself to papists of any kind, ever. I am never going to get away from the King James Bible. It's the book of books. You will never ever come on here and say, see Bryan Denlinger saying, well, actually, I've been convinced now that the ESV or the NIV or the New American Standard or whatever else, I think that that's better or something. No, no. I'm going to be just as stubborn as I can. And not stubborn because of pride. I'm going to say, I'm standing by the book no matter what happens. If it gets me kicked offline, if it gets me kicked out of ministry and people don't want to hear from me anymore, you know, okay, I'll do something else. I am not in this ministry for the money. Let me tell you that. I mean, I get that thing put on me. People say that, oh, you're in it for the money. If I was in it for the money, I'd be like some of the other fakers out there, joining myself up with people. God brought me to this point in my life because he saved me. He bought me with his blood. I really don't have a say in the matter, actually, if you want to be real honest about it. Bryan Denlinger, that used to have a say and did what he wanted to do, he died way back in 2002. And here I am 16 years later, almost probably to the day. I mean, I don't even know. This is the 7th of January. This could actually be the day I got saved, 16 years ago. I don't know. But here I am. God brought me here. God controls my life. Does that mean I don't make mistakes? Of course I make mistakes. People don't seem to understand that. They think I'm supposed to be perfect and never make a mistake. That's not true. I make mistakes. But I'll correct myself when I'm wrong. Again, these people out there, the preachers that are so much better than me, show me where they come out and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Show me the videos where they say that they're wrong. I've never seen one. So I'll be here as long as the body of Christ wants me here, as long as the Lord, say it that way, as long as the Lord wants me here. But the time is going to come, brethren, I believe, when people are not going to want the Word of God anymore. I've seen so many people over the years. Another thing I've learned about all my time in ministry, over 10 years now, you know, one thing I've learned is that there's so many people that look like they're doing good, and you just see them, and I start to see them just kind of veer off a little bit, and before long I know it, boom, crash. And by God's grace, I'm not ever going to do that. I'm going to stand by the book, no matter what it costs me. So that's going to be it. I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos. What am I at here? 2 hours and 22 minutes. Well, what do you do? You know, I know my wife, she did 3 parts for her testimony, and I don't know, this will probably end up being 3 parts. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about. How do you sum up your life in just a few, you know, I'll just get it done in 5 minutes or something like that. Well, my quick testimony is I was a false convert from the time I was 8 up until the time I was 26 years old. That's when the Lord finally broke my wicked life and brought me to my knees, literally. And I cried out to him to save me. And he heard my prayer. And the old man died. That old man just ceased to exist. Doesn't mean I became sinlessly perfect after that, as far as my own works and fleshly nature and whatever else. No, it just, things changed in my life, and God saved me. I was born again, and He changed my life. You going back to me when I was a teenager and said, hey, someday you're going to be a preacher known internationally all over the internet. You know, have so many people attacking you and it makes your head spin sometimes. I'd have said, what? Are you kidding me? Even when I first got saved, if you'd have told me I'd be doing what I'm doing right now, I'd have said, what? Here I am. So, thank you to everybody out there that sticks by the ministry. That really means a lot to us, and keeps us going. So, really have no plans to leave the ministry until the Lord says otherwise. So I thank you, everybody out there, for your friendship, and hopefully this has answered the thing of what's my testimony. What a wonderful life and my change has, or what a wonderful change in my life has been wrought since Jesus came into my heart. Think about that hymn. Very, very true. So that is going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in upcoming videos.